exciting times. We've kind of wound down training camp, and then more in the mode of game week, if you will. 10 days out, I've been pleased. I thought training camp went well. A lot of battles and competition. We're going to continue to look at the roster, as you guys know, right? Nothing's ever final. We played a lot of different guys last year, but we're starting to solidify a lot of those spots. I was pleased with camp. We came out relatively healthy, and now we're going to the morning practice schedule and the morning routine. But been pleased. A lot of work to do still, obviously, before kickoff, and we got to continue to make sure this year we're making improvements as the season goes on. We can't just be status quo and finding ways, but pleased with the overall effort. We can a lot of work to still do, but we're heading in the right direction.
What did you find out about your team to this point that you may have known at the start of August?
Yeah, you know, going into camp, one of the things we talked, you know, really even right when camp got going prior was I want to see what kind of true team they are, right? Camaraderie, you know, how is that going to build? Because this day and age, with the amount of roster turnover that's occurring throughout college football, right? Not only seniors leaving, freshmen coming in, all the new transfers, right? A lot of different competitions, a lot of different people that, you know, some of these guys I've known for 7 years, and I've sat in their homes and got a chance to know them, so I know what motivates them, what buttons to push to make them to get going, to know a lot about their families. And a lot of these guys I'm learning on the fly. And so, and our staff is too, and we're finding out about each other. It's one thing if a freshman comes in with this other freshman, they're together for 5 years. And that's so rare now. And so part of it, you're learning, okay, can this group get along? And it hadn't been perfect. We're like a family, right? I mean, we got a few nuts, and I'm probably one of them. And there's days where there's some arguments and fighting, but that's the nature of it. But I've been pleased. I think this group has come together. They understand, and you talk to them about it, and it's unique, even though they come from a lot of different backgrounds. Guys that have been here for a handful of weeks and guys that have been here for a handful of years are getting along, getting to know each other. We did one of those things where we you know, really on our off days, call them accountability partners. They go to breakfast, no cell phones. They sit across from someone that I hand-selected for them to sit with, and they have a meal together, and they have adult conversations, and they find out who's in the back of the locker, who motivates them, what got them here, what do they want to do when football is all said and done. So they're starting to learn about each other, which has been fun. And I think that's one of those things, Frank, we're seeing that carry over to the field. And I just said a bunch of stuff about guys growing together and bonding, but it's actually paying dividends on the field. They're starting to trust each other. They're going out there and competing at a high level. They're having fun out there. And that's one of the things I found out about this team that I was unsure of. I wasn't sure. I know we got talent. I know we've got guys that can go out there and play football. And then you guys have heard me use the word finish and talking about that with everything we do. And I think we're finding a team that's understanding that, you know, being in the best shape and being conditioned is going to allow us to finish games. Being the most mentally tough team that we can be day in and day out is going to allow us to finish. Talking about owning the football, finding ways to do things at a high level, and then also setting the standard and not deviating from it. This is my 25 years of coaching. I think this is as hard as I've ever been on a group. And whether it be, you know, 20 years ago in a certain position group or now in the entire team, and they're accepting it, and that's good. That's a good thing, and we got to continue to push, and I can't let my foot off the gas, and just quite pleased. I'm very, very pleased with our staff. The coaches have done a phenomenal job, and credit to them and credit to everybody else around it. So, you know, all those things, some of those unknowns, and guess what? I'll know a lot more in December than I do now, and we're going to learn week in and week out, you know, truly what we're all about. But I'm pleased so far.
Ryan, when a couple of days ago, Coach Dawkins was talking about it, hey, we got 5 guys that are running with the ones and the twos. Obviously, during practice, it looks like, you know, Sutton is getting a lot of. Are you ready to name a number one? Because, you know, for the last couple of years, you're saying, look, we've got a lot of guys in that room, but I need a guy that I can count on. Are you ready to do that yet, or not ready?
Yeah, so I think with I view the running back room a lot like wide receivers, right? Like, you know, you can sit there and say, here are the 3 wide receivers that go out with that first group, but when end of the game, the guy that went out there with the ones may have gotten 45 snaps, the guy that went out with the twos may have gotten 40 snaps. No different than, you know, defensive linemen, right? We rotate D tackles especially. So at the running back room, you know, very pleased. You mentioned Sutton Smith, and I talked about him a lot last year as a true freshman. He was one of our only true freshmen that got some playing time. And, you know, we've got a lot of expectations for Sutton. We expect to see him all over the field, and he can do a lot of things for us. Very, very explosive young man that will be a major part of this offense. You know, Blake Watson, the transfer from ODU, I'm quite pleased with what he's been able to do. You know, he's one that you guys didn't get to see a lot this spring due to injury, and he was ultra productive at Old Dominion, and he's come out here and very, very impressive all of camp so far and heading into week 1. And then, you know, let's not forget about Jay Ducker. Jay's a solid runner. He's had some explosive runs. He had a great spring. He continues to do a lot of things, and quite pleased with him. He's a little bit dinged up, so a lot of that, you guys know how that running back position is. I don't want to get to the season like we did a few years ago where we started 6 different running backs. We're not there. And then, Brandon Thomas, he's going to be one of those guys that we have high expectations for. He ran for 150 yards a couple years ago versus Mississippi State. He's got to stay healthy and be consistent, and he knows that. But the first 3 names are, I think, ones that you can expect to see on the field quite a bit in a variety of roles.
So it's still going to be a committee approach as you see it,
Well,
because you're also flanking out, Sutton in the slot, and
now you're giving away our game day secrets.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm just kidding.
You seem to be a guy that wanted to get away from less committee, but it seems that with the talent in that room, it might be the best.
So yeah, if we're averaging 80 plays a game, and each one of those guys under a variety, not including special teams, like you said, one of them can be out there as a slot wide receiver or even an X because of their intelligence. Right? If each one is getting 30 plays a game, I don't know how many touches that will equate to. Obviously, RPOs, all those different things. But I can see a scenario where there's, in an 80-play game, they're getting 90 total reps. You know what I'm saying? 30, 30, 30. I really believe they all can be capable. So I don't want to sit there. We're not going to sit there and just say, okay, every 3 plays we're rotating the backfield. I don't want to get into that. Hopefully we're in shape well enough to be able to go out there and play ball. Plus, we're holding those guys to higher expectations in special teams. I think our running backs haven't been as involved. We've had some returners, Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, those guys that have done a nice job on special teams, but I think we're asking more of them on special teams. Let's put our best players out there and play ball. We've got to be, special teams in an area we have to improve. And if we got a lot of running backs that we feel really trustworthy with, sometimes a guy that plays special teams can play 25 snaps in a game. And then maybe if they only get 25 at running back, well, they still played 50 snaps, and that may be more than the guy that got the starting nod. So,
what's the spot now that you're done with training camp where you're going to have to make the toughest decision on who's playing early in the season? Is it those 2 tackle spots, or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, Mark, I think we've known there's been some of those unknowns at the tackle spot. I think McKylan Pounders has done a nice job coming in and filling in where he needed to be, right? He got that first start last year versus Mississippi State, 11 plays in, hurt his ankle, and then really was never able to get back to where he needed to be. We're hoping he can be the left tackle. He's a young man from Byhalia that has a tremendous upside that we have high expectations for as well. And then the other tackle spot is still a lot of battle and a lot of competition. We've had to flip some guys. Guys have been chipped up throughout camp. But I think that right tackle spot, and then we've got, yeah, I mean, you think you got a guy like Xavier Hill to transfer, local talent, if you will, transfer from LSU. You get Terrence McLean. You guys got to see who started the spring at right tackle, did some of those things. Colin Montgomery's the transfer from Oklahoma. We got some guys there that, I'm not saying Marcus Henderson. we've rotated a bunch of guys with the ones. I know you guys say, Ryan, aren't you concerned that going into game 1 you don't? But at least I'm naming names. If I didn't name any, y'all would be like, oh boy,
We still got 10 days.
Yeah, and the reality of it is, we have not even had tomorrow we're gonna have a jog through practice. Like, we're gonna put a lot on them mentally, and if some of these guys can't pick it up, and it's even when I was the offensive line coach, Mark, I think one of the things we did early in the season, and I hope the heat is an advantage, but we're also playing a team that's coming from Daytona. It gets hot in Daytona. And then we go over to Jonesboro. It's hot in Jonesboro. We're playing teams from Texas. So, but we've done it in the past. I don't want to get to the point, but we've done it before. A guy would play 2 series, and then a guy would come in, because if you feel like, hey, this guy, whoever's a B grade and this guy's a B minus, well, if this guy's fresh, he can maintain a B grade, and this guy coming in fresh can maintain a B minus, but this guy tired gets down to a C, then maybe we're not doing ourselves justice. So that's one of those things we looked at. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but I finally feel like there's some depth there. And then the D tackle spot, we could take a bunch of names in a hat, jumble them up, and throw them out there and be like, it's this guy. They're all capable, and you guys know there's a lot of names there, and that's good, because I think that's part of us being able to stay fresh in the fourth quarter and continue to maintain pressure on the quarterback. I'll be able to stop the run in a variety of different ways.
Some of these positions, you just talked about tackle. Do you feel like some of this is going to continue into the start of the season, these battles for position?
One biggest thing is you got to stay healthy, because like we talked about McKylan Pounders, 11 plays into last year. I wasn't expecting to have to go and make a change at left tackle at the very first game of our season. And I'm not ever using that as an excuse. That's our job, is to build depth. But I want to be able to get those guys that may not be the starters to be able to be capable of going in, 1, if there's an injury, 2, to maybe keep us fresh. And I think, the position, right, we don't want to sub guys out on as quarterback. But if we have to Mike's point, if we have some running backs we can really count on, that, man, Ryan, there's not much of a drop-off, then it'd be smart of us, instead of getting a guy 50 plays a game, to get him maybe 30 to 35 so they can be fresh, because it's a long season. Our plan is, one game at a time. I'm not looking past Bethune-Cookman, but we plan to play 14 games. So, with that being said, I've also got to be smart with guys. And it's called load management, I guess, is an NBA term, which I had never heard of prior. Coach Jenkins had heard him talk about that. But, no, now, will competition always occurs? Yeah, absolutely. Because we may put on the film game one. It's one thing you can go against yourselves at practice all the time in scouts. But game one, that first game film is so invaluable, because you're going to be like, oh, this guy didn't show up underneath the lights, or he forgot about this, or he played out of character. And it's easy to do it, in front of, a bunch of guys just that you've been around every single day for the last 6 months. It's going to be harder under the lights at Liberty Bowl, and hopefully in front of a good crowd, and see who the responder there as well. Kicker? That's a good competition. We'll see what happens. I honestly don't have a exact answer on you, but I do feel comfortable with those guys. Last year we kind of knew who our kicker was. This year, we'll see what happens.
We haven't asked you much about the tight end spot. Where are you feeling about how that depth chart is lining up?
Yeah, I think if I were to lay it out, I'd say Anthony Lanphier is our starting tight end, and feel comfortable with him being a 3-down tight end. He's also going to play a lot of special teams for us. He played a little bit last year. He was kind of like our number 2 guy last year, but Anthony Lanphier, I think, will be our starting tight end. And then you kind of look at, is it Doyle? Is it Chisholm? Is it, Austin Smith, the transfer from Colorado? We got a bunch of guys I think that can help us play. We've lined up in 12 personnel a lot since I've been here, and I think every play over the last 7 years we've had a tight end on the field. So at that point as well, right, do I want to be tight end by committee? But I do think that's a position where, and Anthony Lanphier may get 35 to 40 plays a game, and what can they do if we're a 12 personnel team, if we're on the goal line and we decide to line up in a bigger package, what it may be. But I think he's made himself the clear-cut starter, and the rest of the guys are all capable as well.
I know you're always just doubting on the season at hand, but Prescorn was in the cut when Sean Dykes was the guy.
Yeah.
Landfield was in the cut last year, and it seems like he's going to be a starter. How are you liking just the development that you guys are able to put out from your number 2 tight end to the following year?
That's the name of the game, right? I mean, it's I don't mean to sound funny, but reality, if Anthony Lanphier goes and has a 48 catch season, I don't know if we can afford to keep him. And so we've got to make sure but every position, we got to make sure we can continue to develop those guys. I don't care if it's the 4th string center. It's our job to develop those guys. I've been pleased. Coach Salem does a phenomenal job. But I hope that those tight ends continue to be productive, and I hope those guys underneath them will continue to learn. It's a unique position because it is, we line up every time, and we ask them to do a bunch of different stuff, right? You guys have seen them line up as the number 1 wide receiver. You guys have seen them line up in the backfield. You guys have seen them line up with their hand in the dirt, kind of off the ball in the old H-back type of system. So tight ends have been invaluable for us, even going back to the days of, Joey Magnifico is now on staff, and some of those other guys. By the way, he did catch it. But just, I think that's been invaluable to what we can do offensively. And the development of that position, along with all of ours, has got to be huge.
So where's that transition like going from the intensity of training camp to preparing for the game?
If anybody asked me out there, you'd say they must still be in training camp, must be practice 1, because I'm running around like a damn lunatic out there. And players thought how much coffee do I don't drink coffee. I'm just a nut job. So the intensity actually is probably revved up even more, because now I'm like, here we go. Maybe instead of 4 hours sleep, I'll get 5 hours sleep and watch out. But no, I think the players understand the importance of now as you get into game week. It is a little bit different, right? Especially when school starts. And they are student athletes. I'm, as you guys have heard me over the years, I'm very mindful of what that means, right? There's a reason why we've had the highest graduation rate for 3 straight years since I've been the head coach in our conference. It's important to me. So the student athlete part of it is now, but it's got to be even more focus. Because during training camp, you can sleepwalk through and okay, I've got to go to these meetings, this walkthrough. I'll probably sleep on the couch, the players, in the locker room, wake up, go to more meetings, practice, more meetings, and feeding a ton and all that stuff, and then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Now you get into the game plan, right? Who can study the film? It turns into more of a chess match. So that aspect's fun. I love training camp. I absolutely love it, and I think our players are ready and excited for the season like we all are. And now it's tuned down. Like tomorrow, it's going to be a jog through, right? We really haven't had many of those, right? A true Thursday walkthrough type practice for us, and I just think seeing where that can go I'm excited, as we get closer and closer to a true game week, we'll be able to see a lot more. But the intensity and the focus has got to continue to crank up, and hopefully it's turning up a notch every week.
Is there anyone who entering training camp you're not necessarily expecting this guy's probably not going to get playing time for us this year, this guy's not going to be a big contributor, who has in these 3 weeks emerged as a guy who now you feel like this guy's definitely playing for us this year?
Yeah, two names, and I'll give them on defense. And you never go into it, that's not coach speak, but you never say, well, this guy will never play. I mean, we looked at Calvin Austin sitting in the back of the classroom for 3 straight years, and next thing you know, he's tearing it up every game. So a young man you guys may or may not have heard of, Hank Pearson, right, who's a local D lineman, I think from Houston High School, that has come and done a phenomenal job. I mean, the kid's going to law school next year, and you played maybe a handful of plays as a walk-on last year versus Tulane, and he's just done a great job for us. And we think about all those D tackles we brought in, and he's come in and done a good job. And then Cam Smith, someone asked me the other day how many DBs. We started 13 different defensive backs last year. I don't know if he was one of those that started. He may have started one of those games, but he's done a phenomenal job of coming in. I think our fans are going to be excited. He's made a lot of plays. Yes, sir, safety for us, and he's done a really, really nice job. So seeing his development, he's one of those that fans are like, who's this guy? He came in, he was a Division II walk-on, a couple years ago, and talk about the development. Credit to our coaching staff for getting him, put him in the right place.
Ryan, when you talk about a guy in that secondary, you bring him in from Arkansas and Simeon Boy, and a guy that has that much experience to be able to lay him out, roll him out there with some new pieces, and for him, all of them are new. But what has he brought to that secondary in terms of, hey, this is how it's done. This is how it's done at the highest level.
Yeah, obviously I'm giddy just talking about Simeon Blair. I mean, that someone mentions his name, I'm like a happy puppy. Like, yeah, thank goodness we got him. He has been absolutely phenomenal in every aspect of our program. He's going to be one of the top safeties in the country. Mark my words, Simeon Blair is going to be one of the top defensive backs in the country. They came out with their Senior Bowl watch list. I try not to read into that. Shame on those guys. He should be on that list. And he is phenomenal off the field as well. High character young man. He puts us in the right calls. He's smart. He leads. He's been everything you can ever want. He's kind of in that Quindell Johnson role, just a leader, a guy that you're not supposed to love at first sight, man. With Simeon, it was like, holy cow, we got this young man, and he's been phenomenal. And what I appreciate is him and I can have adult conversations like, what is it from a culture standpoint that we're continue to do maybe that puts us in a better mindset and mind frame. And some of those older guys that have done it and seen other things, we can have that dialogue, and it makes me a better head coach and hopefully him a better player. And I've just been tickled pink that he's here, and he's done a phenomenal job. And you guys are going to continue to hear me beat the podium for Simeon Blair because, man, he's special.
You mentioned that the intensity needs to ramp up through next Saturday, but from your guys' perspective, and you're 10 days away now, is there a sense of they know that all of this work from spring to summer workouts to training camp and all of that it's almost here? How much are they biting at the bit for us to see all this work kind of rolled out at the
Yeah, I mean, I had a team. I normally don't meet with them before we got to the practice field, and I had a team in. I said, guys, it's going to be hot out there. We're going to get work, and we've got to continue to put it in. We're going to be smart with them, right, take care of their bodies. But I think those that have been around here now are starting to chomp at the bit like, here we go. We're getting closer. And, we were able to finally get underneath the lights last Saturday night in the Liberty Bowl, Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, and have a little bit of scrimmage there. So guys are starting to, here's where my locker is going to be. What uniform are we wearing? And that, to me, is fun because that's the pageantry of college football. And in a place like Memphis, it's just so much fun where, I'm excited to see the crowd and to be a part of this thing. And the players, man, they're ready to go. They're ready for that Tiger Walk. We still got 10 more days of preparation. I'm not quite there yet.
What is the uniform? Give it to us right now.
I don't know. I'm sure Scott Burns will leak it out a couple days prior.
With the wide receivers, just talk a little bit about, obviously, a lot of you guys coming in, trying to build that relationship with Seth. What's that been like from his perspective also?
Yeah, part of, this offseason, I challenged Seth to be more of a leader, right? And sometimes leadership is in a variety of different roles, right? Maybe it's being more vocal in the field with the tight ends, talking to the O-line, hanging out with them. But part of his role, he knows, is to develop those relationships with those wide receivers. And with all those new names, right? Obviously, him and Rocket had a relationship, but that thing is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Rock Taylor, Demir Blankenship, Toski Dove. being around those guys. And I always love it because I never, you get worried if you ever see a quarterback eating by themselves. You ever see that guy? Yeah, he ain't going to be a winner. So I love going to the cafeteria, and Seth's got receivers over here. They're talking, they're watching film, and they're probably doing it right now, which is awesome. And that's what you want to see. So he's made that the point to get to those guys, the Kobe Drakes, the Marcelo Bussies, be around those guys. And I think that's going to be huge for us day in and day out of what we want to accomplish.
In the off season, when you, especially now, when you're putting the roster together, if you envision it, working out a certain way, has this turned into? I guess is this turning into the team you envisioned? Is it something maybe different than you envisioned now that you got it out on the field after 3 months? Do you can you know even at this
Can I let you know January 2nd?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it is.
A good feeling
Yeah,
about it.
Mark, I'll never. I've always been forthright with you guys. I'm pleased with this roster. I really am. I think we got the pieces in place. What does that mean? The pieces in place to do what? I don't know. But I like them. I don't know what SMU has lined up. I don't even know what Bethune-Cookman has lined up, right? But I like our group. I really do. I'm excited about them. Do you always wish maybe we could find, I'm not going to tell you, maybe this puzzle piece and put it here, it turns into NFL free agency to an extent. But no, I really, really think we've got the right guys, the right mindset more than anything. And so I'm excited. This is kind of, as you let's call it what it is, as you build a roster nowadays, you kind of say, is this what I want to look like? And it's part of that is, I've told you guys this over the last few months, is more than ever, right? We always talk about culture, and you hear CEOs and head coaches, culture, standards. I mean, play it 1,000 times. But now we harp on it every single day rather than, hey, just once a team meeting. You're hearing it all the time because that's part of keeping that together will allow us to have success throughout the year. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great day.